Well, I went pretty big on sex last night, as you know. What is a woman? What is a man? And how our bureaucrats, our political class, seem so frightened of actually being straight up and talking about this basic biological difference. If you missed it, here's the key exchange.
Can someone please provide me with a definition of what a woman is? Department of Health. Definition of a man, definition of a woman. Anyone?
It's pretty basic.
Basic stuff. Professor Murphy.
I think there are a variety of definitions, and I think
just a simple one.
Perhaps to give a more fulsome answer, we should take that on notice.
You're going to take on notice the question of what a woman is.
No, well, there are variety. It's a very contested space.
Contested space, eh? Well, I'm pleased to say the Premier of New South Wales is happy to deal in reality. Here's Dom Perrottet with 2GB's Ben Fordham this morning.
Do you know what a woman is, Premier?
Yes. I don't know, female adult human being.
What's going on?
It's a pretty obvious question.
What's going on when the boss of the Federal Health Department can't answer a question like that? I mean, we know what's going on.
We live in a pretty strange world, Ben.
People are afraid of defining what a woman is.
I know. I mean, this is just...
You seem speechless. You had your head in your hands while you were listening to that audio.
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's a pretty obvious question, which requires a pretty obvious answer. And if we don't have the health teams that can answer that question, I think we're in a pretty bad space.
Yeah, bad space, all right. With 7 kids, you'd expect Perrottet to know the answer to that question, but I bet plenty of his bureaucrats play similar games. As you know, this identity politics and the woke nonsense is everywhere. And I've got another example to share with you, thanks to our great mate James Morrow, host of Outsiders here on Sky and, of course, political editor at the Daily Telegraph. James has reported on the latest publication of the Australian Institute for Disaster Resilience, its Journal of Emergency Management. Now, emergency management and sex or gender, you wouldn't think there'd be much overlap, would you? But this pernicious identity stuff filters into every nook and cranny. Just look at some of the articles in this edition. We get Gender Justice in Disaster, an Outcomes Statement. Or we can read about government initiatives for reimagining gender in emergency management. And there's Embedding Gender Equality in Emergency Management Planning. And my favourite, Gender, Toilets and Evacuation Centres. I mean, let me help them out with that one. You need male, you need female, you should have disability toilets. Problem solved. But what about this one? What is gender justice in disasters? A good question. I mean, do we have to rescue people by gender quota? Or perhaps the rescuers have to meet some quota? No, apparently the point is that to think constructively about gender in disasters, we need some clarity about gender. The most common ideas are that gender is simply a biological dichotomy between male and female, or that gender is an individual and very personal identity. Just extraordinary, this isn't it? This stuff is written by grown adults. We're back where we began this discussion. Our emergency services are in a spin about needing some clarity about gender. There are men, there are women, there are boys, and there are girls. And now and then there are trans people. And guess what? You can deal with trans people respectfully, just as they might be perfectly frank in letting you know about their situation. But here's the key point I reckon, is they are all people. And the job of emergency services is to help people. Perhaps let's protect people and rescue people first, and then let someone else write a thesis about their identity or their labels.